What's up everybody and welcome to a new video. And in this video we're gonna go over my notes for the search activity in VS Code. So what does it do? Well, it simply provides search capability across all files of the workspace. So that's how I would define it. So then now let's look at my notes for this search functionality. Namely, the first one is that the search results are grouped by file. So for example, if I search here for game and then collapse it, then you can see there are two files that contain search results, notes.md and code navigation.py. And next to the name of the file, you can see the location of the file. But that's only when the file is not in the root of the project. So for example, notes.md, this is in the root of the project. However, code navigation.py is within demonstration examples editor. Okay, so then also here on the right hand side, you can see how many search results there are within the respective file. So for example, in notes.md there are 21 and in code navigation.py there are 45. And if you hover over these numbers, then you can see this X here, and with that you can dismiss or delete the result, the file from the search result. So if I click this, then notes.md is not listed anymore. Okay, so now let's have a look at the search results here. And here, if you single click a result, then a preview opens of the file and the respective line and search result are highlighted. So for example, if I single click this, then you can see now the 7 is highlighted and this search result. And if you double click a search result, then the file is opened and the respective search result is selected. Okay, so now let's have a look at these search options here. So the first one is match case, i.e. this is a case sensitive search. So for example, if I make this here a capital G, then collapse again everything and then toggle this on, then you can see in code navigation.py there's now only one search result. And if I toggle it off, then there are again 45. Okay, so that's the first search option. The second one is called match whole word, i.e. this doesn't match if there are any letters, numbers or underscores right before or after the search term. So for example, then if I toggle this on, then there are only 5 search results in code navigation.py. And here, as you can see, these are only search results where there's not a letter, a number or an underscore right before or after the search term. So if I toggle this on, for example, off, for example, then you can see here game underscore size or game underscore board are not included when I toggle this on. Okay, so that's the second option, and the last option that you have here is to use regular expressions. And I don't know how to use them, so therefore I can't show you an example. Okay, so then the next thing that I want to talk about are the search details, which you can toggle with this ellipsis here. And here you have two options, files to include and files to exclude. So let's have a look at this first one. With that you can specify what files you want to include into the search. So let's, for example, only include markdown files. So therefore we would then type *.md. So this way now there are only markdown files considered. And here you also have an option which is to search only in opened editors. So for example, if I create a new markdown file, let's call it simply test.md, and here let's type a game into that, and if we just toggle this on and then refresh, then you can see we have here those two files. However, if I now close this test.md file and then refresh, then it's not listed anymore. So that's how this option here works. Okay, so now let's get to the files exclude setting. Therefore, I want to use a new search. So let's search for show. And if I again collapse here, so you can see these are the files that contain results for show. And now let's exclude markdown files again. So this markdown file should then be excluded. So let's say *.md. And if I collapse it, then you can see this notes.md file is not listed anymore. Okay, so then here you also have a search option, which is to use exclude settings. And this refers to a specific setting. So therefore, let me open the settings and then search for search exclude. So that's the setting that this toggle here is referring to. And if I toggle this off, for example, what you will see then here that now there are these .sample files. And those sample files, they are located in these .git folders. And if I toggle this on, then they are not included, even though the .git folders are here not listed, but that's just because the search exclude setting inherits all glow patterns from the files exclude setting. So if I click that, then you can see here are the .git folders listed. So that's why here the sample files are not listed anymore. Okay, so let's go back to the search exclude setting. And here you can also add your own patterns. So let's add a pattern to exclude Jupyter Notebook files so that this file here is not listed anymore. Okay, so therefore we click the button and then simply asterisk slash asterisk dot ipynb. So let's add that. And now if I refresh, then you will see that the Jupyter Notebook is not listed anymore. So that's how you can use this search exclude setting. However, one side note that I want to mention here is the following. Namely, in the search view, this prefix here, asterisk slash, is for these glow patterns here is assumed. So, for example, what that means is if I here delete that again from this pattern, then you will see that it's not working anymore. So if I refresh here, now the Jupyter Notebook is again listed. However, if I use the same pattern here in the search, then it will be excluded. So let's delete this pattern here, and then here say ipynb, and then if I collapse, then you can see that the Jupyter Notebook is not listed anymore. Okay, so those are my notes that I want to mention with respect to the search details. Okay, so then the last note is about the search editor. And you can open that in two ways. You can go here to the toolbar and open a new search editor, or you can also click this open in editor link here. Before I do that, let me do another search. So let's again search for game and then here open in editor. So what that does, it populates the search editor with your search terms. Okay, so that's what the editor looks like, and it has several advantages over the search in this activity bar. The first one is that you have here a full-sized editor window instead of just this sidebar. The next advantage is that you have full syntax highlighting, which you don't have here in the sidebar. Then a third advantage is that you have surrounding lines for context. So for example, here the search result is on line 391. However, it also shows the line before that and the line after that. And you can toggle this off via this button here. So if I toggle this off, then only the respective line is shown. If I toggle it on, then we have our surrounding lines. And here you can specify how many lines you want. So for example, if I set this to 2, then here I have 2 lines before the result and 2 after. Okay, so let's set it back to 1. So that's another advantage. And then what you also can do here with this editor or with the search editor here is you can save it into a file. So if I press Ctrl S, then you can save here this file. So let's save that. And if you go back to the Explorer, then you can see now we have here this .code-search file. So this you could use then to come back to a search later. So let's, for example, say we are done with the search, and then at a later point we want to go back to it. Then simply open the file, and then you can, for example, search for another term. So let's search for game board, for example, and then you could use the search file here, again in this way. And then the last advantage is that this file here is actually editable, so you can write something in it, for example, that you can use them for documentation purposes or something like that. So here, for example, we could add a comment that says rename ? And here, just as a side note, this obviously doesn't affect the original file. So here there's no comment. It's only in this .code search file. Okay, so those are the advantages. Then some similarities between the search editor and the search here in the activity bar is that you have the same search options. So match case, match whole word, and regular expressions. Then you also have the search details here. And the only difference is that you don't have here a replace functionality, which we talk about in a moment. Okay, so those are the main points that I want to mention. However, there's one side note, namely, if you double click anywhere into the search results, then a preview opens. So for example, if you go here to the code navigation.py results, and if I close this file, and now if I double click anywhere here, for example on show, then you can see we open a preview and the cursor is now on show. Okay, so those are all the notes that I wanted to mention with respect to the search functionality. Okay, so now let's go over my notes for the search and replace functionality. And as I just said, you can toggle this with this arrow here. And here now let me enter another search term, namely we're going to use make move, and we're going to replace that with execute move. And here then you can see the search results. And here, just as a side note, if I click a result here, then this opens a div editor for that change. Okay, so now let's say we wanted to replace make move with execute move, then you would have different options for doing that. So the first one is if you just want to replace a single instance, then you can hover over the result and then click here this replace button. So therefore, let me open code navigation.py. So here's the make move function. Now if I just replace that single instance, then it opens this div editor. Let's close that. And here you can see it says now execute move, whereas when we call the function, it's still called make move. So let's undo this. Now we have again these two search results. Now then the other replacement possibility is to replace all instances in a particular file. So therefore hover over the file and then click this replace all button. So if I replace all, then you can see make move was replaced here, but also here at the bottom. So when we call this function, it's also replaced with execute move. So again, let's undo this. And then the last replacement possibility that you have is here at the top. And here you can actually replace all instances across all files that you have. Okay, so those are the three possibilities. Replacing just a single instance, all the instances within a file, or all the instances across all files. Okay, so then here you also have a replacement option, which is called preserve case. So therefore, to show that how that works, let me again search for another term. So let's search for game and replace that with match. And then let me scroll down here to the bottom, and here you can see game is written with a capital G, whereas in all the other places it's written with a lowercase g. So if I toggle this preserve case on and then replace all instances in code navigation.py, then you will see that here match is written with a capital M, whereas in all other places it's written with a lowercase m. Okay, so let's again undo this. And those are already all the notes that I wanted to mention with respect to the search and replace functionality. Okay, so now let's get to the toolbar. Namely, the options that you have here is to refresh the search. You can clear the search results. You can open a new search editor, which we've already seen. Then here you can toggle between a tree view and a list view. So therefore, let me again search for game and then collapse all. And then here, if you view it as tree, then it looks like this. And then you can toggle it back to view as list. And then lastly here, you can expand all search results or collapse all. So that's the toolbar. So now let's get to the side notes. And the first one is that you can use the up and down arrow keys to go through the search history. So if I click here into the search field and press the up arrow key, then I get to the previous search result. And if I press it again, then I get to the one before that. And you can also use the down arrow key to go back. Okay, so that's the first side note. And the second one is searching a multi-root workspace. Namely, in that case, then the search results are additionally grouped by the root folders. And to show you that, I have prepared an example. So let me open this multi-root workspace. And here, if we go to the search and simply search for test, then you can see here that the results are additionally grouped by the root folders. Okay, so that is the second side note. And with that now, we've covered all the notes that I wanted to cover with respect to the search. So then in the next video, we're going to go over the notes for my notes for source control. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.